In today's episode of the Pathfind Presents podcast, I'm with Cristina Maria from Commusoft. She's hailing over as a content manager at Commusoft, and Commusoft is built for field service. And basically, it helps teams to increase profits, manage daily workflows, and delight their customers with their platform. And today, we really want to jump into the nitty-gritty of what Commusoft is all about, but also talk about growth. Cristina is very heavily involved in inbound marketing, so we're today going to be really looking into that in depth. And welcome to the show, Cristina.
Thank you, Lucas, and I'm very happy to be here. Hello, everyone listening in. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about what makes Commusoft an interesting company, why inbound marketing was the strategy we chose in order to grow. And well, not to ring our own bells, but we did grow quite a bit in the last couple of years. We're very happy, but we're also expanding. So I think there's some exciting things coming.
Very cool. Yeah, so maybe give us an insight at the very beginning. What is Commusoft all about in your own words?
So the simplest way to think about Commusoft is as the only platform a field service business needs in order to manage their appointments, close more sales, and chat with the entire team. Basically, from the moment a job gets booked to the moment a job gets done and they get paid, this is the only tool they need.
That makes it very simple to understand. And what types of businesses would you say you work with? Obviously, they have to be involved in the field services, but maybe give us an insight, like, what industries, is there certain sizes of businesses where it starts to make sense to leverage a tool like Commusoft? Maybe give us an insight.
Absolutely. So I wasn't super familiar with the field service industry term because it encompasses quite a few types of companies. And I think that's important for people to kind of be a bit more aware of. So a classic field service business would be a company that has both a team in the office and a team that goes outside in the field. More often than not, it's plumbing companies, heating, HVAC, electrical, so home services. But then you pretty much end up with some really quirky companies from time to time, like anything from lawn care to boat repairs to, your pet cremation service. It's really interesting to see the kind of people that come to Commusoft and that need something, some of the things that our tool can provide. Usually we work with companies from 5 to 100 employees, but we're still all about personalization and just getting to know what's out there. So we're always welcome to the more, let's say, out of the ordinary companies.
Cool. And who within those companies is typically the champion for Commusoft? Is that like a head of operations or a head of customer experience, or who is kind of raising the hand and says, "Hey, we need Commusoft within our organization"?
So it really depends on the size of the company. That's one of the most interesting things. So within the field service industry, you obviously have small, medium, and large companies like in any other industry. And depending on their size, it's pretty much a different person that identifies Commusoft. Usually, what we've been seeing a lot more with very young entrepreneurs who start their own field service business is that they come to us before they even hire someone because they're aware of the fact that it's so difficult these days to run a company without software. It's nigh impossible. So they're already getting ready. They want a tool like Commusoft because they know it's something that they can grow together with. So it will suit them when they have 10 employees. It will suit them when they have 50. It will suit them when they have 100. So that's one of the things. Then with slightly larger companies, you usually get a chief operations officer or an operations manager that realizes their admin really needs a lot of help, like everything from customer relationship management to invoice management to purchase orders, communicating with vendors. For all this, they need one tool. And that's usually the challenging part because there's a lot of tools to do those things individually, but they don't communicate with each other. And whilst that might work for other types of companies, in the field service industry, every single step of the buying journey is very much connected to the previous one and is very much connected to the ins and outs of each company. So like I said, vendors, vendor management, purchase orders, even like inventory management, those are all going to influence the customer experience that they provide. And then you have the largest companies that come to us. And in those situations, it's either an IT consultant, so a software consultant. They usually hire somebody else to do an audit of what's out there. We work with some of our own consultants where we collaborate to find like the best fit. Or it would be an internal IT manager that's been tasked to, find a tool that works for the company. More often than not, they're probably transitioning from another software, because realistically, a company that big is not going to be run with pen and paper.
That makes a whole lot of sense. Now, how do these folks hear about Commusoft? Like, what would you say is the typical journey that somebody's going through in order to get to know you guys, getting started? Or in other words, what are the client acquisition channels that you guys leverage?
So, from the get-go, it's going to be word of mouth and reviews. No matter how proud we are of our marketing, at the end of the day, check any statistic you want, peer reviews are still the strongest indicator of quality. And thankfully, we have quite a few of those and pretty good ones. But then it is definitely our website that drives our sales. So by website, I mean our blog and obviously our organic traffic. So a big part of our strategy initially, when interestingly enough, fun fact, Commusoft didn't actually have a marketing team for the first about 8 years of it being on the market. So it was literally the product that sold itself. When our CEO, Jason Morjaria, took the decision that he really wanted to grow this company into something big, that's when he hired my direct manager, Maureen Klein, who pretty much was the marketing department for a little bit of time. And she decided that what she wanted was not a incredibly expensive sprint towards massive traffic at massive cost, which is what software companies usually do. Commusoft is completely bootstrapped, so we are not, we have not taken any sort of venture money investments, which again, I feel like it demonstrates something. It demonstrates some of the values that we advocate for, because you can grow fast. Obviously, there are so many companies that grow fast, but what we want is long-term growth and a good relationship with our clients. So to bring it back to your question, one of our main strategies was building Commusoft as a source of education for the customer. So on one hand, of course, you want organic traffic. It is a growth strategy, but we wanted to provide value from our first interaction. So that's why we wanted our customers to find us this way, through a website that gives them something back even before they get in touch with us.
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. Very, very interesting. Typically, when we have marketers on the show and when the website plays a key role, they're always very critical about the website in itself as well, right? What would you consider sort of to be the main strength of the website at the moment, sort of, versus where do you see even further room for improvement?
So interestingly enough, we've had a massive refurbishment of the website in January, which marked another step in Commusoft's growth. We had a rebranding. So it was basically Commusoft growing up. We wanted to target bigger companies. We wanted to demonstrate that we had matured. We're definitely not a startup anymore by any means. So we wanted our website to show that. So I would say one of the biggest strengths right now, it's how efficient the website is at conveying information at first glance. So one of the biggest advantages, I would say, of our team structure in marketing, because of the fact that we have a product marketing department and a content marketing department within the larger just marketing section of the company, I would say that we communicate very closely when it comes to everything from the copy to the images, the videos. We wanted to convey as much information to the customer about what's in it for them. So, everyone in marketing is probably familiar with the fact that people buy the why, not the what. So there was no point in us like displaying product screenshots and nitty gritty of the software. We'll get there. We wanted clients to know what was in it for them at a glance. So I would say that that's one of the strengths of the website, and something we definitely want to improve is obviously optimization is the game. So sometimes optimization can be so incremental. it might not even be apparent to somebody who isn't on the team. But I would say definitely we want to grow we want to improve our communication with the customers. So we want, as soon as somebody comes on the website, we want to stay in touch. Whether that's by building like our newsletter subscriptions, whether that's by building our subscriber base. And we're also getting ready for some interesting launches in the marketing team. But yeah, definitely we want to stay in touch. And I think this is somewhere we can do a lot better, like beyond the sign up for a demo or sign up for a newsletter kind of realm of marketing.
Very cool. I mean, what have you personally learned when it comes to, optimizing that buyer's journey as you're describing it, or increasing even maybe the results from the website? Is there, and that can be with Commusoft, but also in previous roles, like what have you learned? Is there any methods, any tools, any approaches that you like to, sort of take out of your toolbox in order to increase the conversions of the page?
One of the best things I've learned, and I think it was something that I just hadn't implemented properly. It was something I thought I was doing at first, but then realized I really wasn't, was putting myself in the user's shoes. So the user experience is absolutely vital. But I think I never realized how much my own biases took over in the way I designed some of the content on the website at first. So to give you, this is what I would definitely recommend. Just try as much as possible to identify yourself with the target audience. And I would say that came from the fact that I took a lot of my inspirations from SaaS companies selling marketing software to marketers, which is at the end of the day not that difficult. Let's be real, you're selling to yourself. So who better to know the target audience? But with Commusofts, I'm definitely not selling to myself. I'm selling to business owners. I'm selling with people with totally different preoccupations. They consume content in a different way that I do. A super concrete example, if you'd like one, is the many iterations of our newsletter. The first time that we thought about designing the newsletter, we took inspirations from our favorite sources of content. And in that sense, I'm perhaps a little bit more traditional and like reading a lot of newspaper editorials, a lot of very basic wall of text sort of structures, which obviously didn't work because we do not have the same target audience. So we had to go through a couple of iterations in order to judge the user journey properly. And I would say in terms of optimizing the website, that can be everything from button placement to button colors. Again, all the nitty-gritty details that are not very glamorous, but that can definitely make a massive difference. Like I would have never thought how big of a difference it would make just placing some of the links at the beginning of a newsletter instead of at the bottom, which now it seems pretty obvious, how could you not think of that? But isn't that Captain Hindsight?
Yep. I'm curious actually, because you mentioned this where you're diving into a new industry, a new market as a marketer. Like, do you have maybe one or two insights because a lot of marketers are in that shoes, right? Maybe they switch companies and out of a sudden they're in a completely new industry. You have to wrap the head around that industry. What was helpful for you in that journey of deep diving into the field services industry, for example?
Totally. So believe it or not, before Commusoft, I was in fashion marketing. So that was my specialty. I was working a lot with influencers. I was working with fashion companies, designers, accessories was one of the companies that I had more experience with. Mainly, I started working at Commusoft to expand some of their partnership efforts, and my interactions with influencers helped in that respect. So definitely was such a big pivot, pretty scary at first, and I think any marketer can relate to that. But the best thing is, again, get to know your target audience. So one of the most useful things that I ever did in this company was just listen to some sales calls, listen to some customer service or client operations, which is what we call them. Some of these calls, just people calling in, maybe they need help, maybe they want to know a little bit more about the product, listen to them, analyze the way they frame their problems, because that was one of the most difficult things. I mean, anyone can do an SEM rush search. It's not that difficult, but identifying how people frame the problems that your product solves is very difficult because, again, to give you an example, let's say we have an invoicing feature in Commusoft. People don't look necessarily for invoicing optimization, invoicing time optimization, or some of these, things that are pretty obvious to software people. They just look for how can I get paid quicker.
Yep,
it's massive difference. It is the difference between a volume of 100 searches and a volume of 1,500.
Yep.
To put it
makes complete
concrete
sense.
numbers.
Yeah, no, super interesting. We deep dived a little bit now into what you guys are doing. It's so interesting to learn also about your journey as a marketer. I have some rapid fire questions as we're going towards the end of the interview to get to know you and your journey a little bit. You ready for those?
I'm ready.
Very good. What's the last book you read?
The Dark Forest, Liu Qijin, sci-fi book. Very interesting. I feel like people expect it to be a marketing answer, but I'm afraid I read a lot of literature in my off time. It's like my brain taking a break from all the marketing work.
What's one single thing your company is focused on the most at the moment?
Customer journey, making sure our clients offer the best customer experience to their customers.
If there would be no boundaries in tech, so everything is possible, what's the one thing you would fix for your role today?
SEM rush in my brain.
That's a very good one. And for the very last question, I want to sort of get back to you to the days of, let's say, formal education, for example, London Metropolitan we were. Now, you're heading out of formal education. What would be your advice for your journey as a marketer?
Have a dual specialty. So when I joined the marketing team, I was definitely a marketer. That was something I was passionate about, but I was also a writer. And that's what got me the job. Essentially, even when I started hiring for the team, I was looking for someone who understood marketing principles, but also had a talent, let's call it, something that made them creative, something that meant they can create content by using their marketing knowledge to analyze the target audience. So if you can be a marketer and something else, the job is yours.
It's super interesting, Cristina. I really appreciate you took the time with us to be a guest on Pathon Presents. I want to give you the very last word. If people would be forgetting all that we discussed about Commusoft today, what's the one thing they should remember?
Commusoft is trying to move the industry forward, and we want to do that through high quality software. I mean, sure, sales and marketing is great, and I'm very proud of the work we do here, but it would not be worth anything without a good product to back us up. And I think that's what makes us stand out from the competition.
Thanks a lot for being a guest on Pathon Presents.
Thank you, Lucas. I was happy to be here today.